Something lures after dark. It's so hard to resist it. Time and time again, I witness you walking up. There's plenty of reasons to stop. Though it's hard before, you keep coming back for more. Beat up and broken, you stand like waves upon the shore. You're coming back for more. There's nothing new to explore. Still you're coming back for more. You're coming back for more. Some make me bring their own, and some learn the lesson. But you won't even hear me out. 'Cause something lures after dark. It's so hard to resist it. Time and time again, I witness you walking up. There's plenty of reasons to stop. Though it's harder than before, you keep coming back for more. Beat up and broken, you stand like waves upon the shore. You're coming back for more. There's nothing new to explore. Still you're coming back for more. You're coming back for more. You won't give up. You need the adrenaline rush. Though it's harder than before, you keep coming back for more. Looking for ways to be crushed, like waves upon the shore. You're coming back for more.
That was Back for More from Pyramaze's most recent album, Disciples of the Sun. Of course, joining us here on According to Metal is Jonah Weingarten from Pyramaze, from Universal Mind Project, and of course, Sentinels, which he's talked more about here on the show. And, dude, that's going to be awesome, too.
Oh, yeah, we're pretty excited, man.
And we've asked this question maybe, the last 5 or 6 interviews. And we've gotten answers, Jonah, anywhere from Wu-Tang to the Andrews Sisters. So my question to you is, we're metalheads. We listen to metal. We dig it. We love it. But what is your guilty pleasure when it comes to music? Like, what is something that you right now on this show are going to either shamedly or unashamedly admit that you listen to and don't give a crap what anyone thinks about you?
That would probably be, I listen to like 90s Eurotrance music.
Really?
Yeah, I love it.
Name some bands or some groups that we would know.
ATB, Paul Oakenfold, Paul Van Dyke, Armin van Buren. Yeah, those are some of the bigger ones right off the top of my head.
Wow, that's not been... I know of Paul Oakenfold, of course, but I would... well, again, we get new answers all the time. My favorite one so far is Urban Breed, who of course you know. He mentioned that the Andrews Sisters were his favorite guilty pleasure, and it's like,
actually, hey, fun fact: Urban was here a couple months ago.
Yeah,
staying with me for 9 days in my house, and we listened to a lot of Andrews Sisters.
See, So he wasn't lying. Yeah,
No,
dude,
actually,
he's like,
when you said a few minutes ago that someone said Andrew Sisters, I was like, oh, it must have been Urban.
it
I
was
knew that.
absolutely Urban Breed, and I was like, what? He's like, no, I swear to God, they're amazing. And
He loves. I actually,
that's awesome.
because of him, I have a Pandora station for that.
That's awesome.
Nice.
Yeah, no, it kind of, I'm with him. It like puts you in kind of a mood, brings you back to a certain time, I suppose.
So there you go. So you have a newfound appreciation, and I'll have to get into some '90s Eurotrans and see what I think then, and kind of refresh my memory on some of the stuff that Jonah's into, because it's been a while.
Yeah, well, I mean, I grew up listening to new age music with my mom, like Enya and Yanni and all that stuff, and I don't really think that Eurotrance is that far removed.
No, that's true.
As long as you don't mind the repetitiveness of the beat, but it puts you in a trance. That's kind of what it does.
Well,
so.
Hence the name. Yeah, so that's
right.
Very cool. Wow, that's good to know, man. Well, I appreciate that. Thanks for sharing that with us.
Jonah, a question that I like to ask. Now, one of the reasons, actually the primary reason that Jason and I decided to launch this show, which was a few years kind of in the making of developing the ideas for it, was we love to feature and highlight bands that, especially in today's music industry, that, as you know, there's an ocean of bands out there. And for any one of them to, crack the surface a little bit just to be heard is very, very difficult. So we always like to ask the question of, who have you heard out there? Who have you seen or heard or whatnot that is a band that's extremely talented that you think needs to be heard?
There was a band, they're not around anymore, but they were in Australia around Sydney, and it was a melodic death metal band called Infernal Method. And I think they still have a MySpace page where you can hear their music. But it's really awesome, fantastic stuff. They were really good musicians, awesome guitars and everything like that. Sort of like a mixture of like Soilwork and Arch Enemy, I guess.
Oh, sweet, dude. I'll totally dig that. Like, which era of Soilwork and Arch Enemy are we talking?
The older stuff, I guess.
Okay.
But melodic death metal is my favorite genre of metal. And, it's too bad that, like, they put out one album, and it's just too bad that a lot of people have never even heard of it, because it's so good, and it's just sort of like a little ripple in time, I guess, because they made this great album, and then I think they broke up sometime after that, and then that's it. It's like if a tree falls in the forest type situation.
Yeah, that sucks too, because I think I'll never forget, and we just talked about this on there when we reviewed Battles, but my first introduction to melodic death metal was actually Horacle from In Flames, and I was just blown away at just how different it was than anything I ever heard before. So to me, that's one of my favorite genres in metal as well. So I will absolutely check that out, dude, for sure.
Awesome. Yeah. That older In Flames stuff is just untouchable.
It's unbelievable. And now that you hear what they're doing now, it's so disappointing.
It's a completely different band. And,
yeah.
It's not necessarily my cup of tea, and obviously people out there are into it and awesome. That's great. But to me, I remember being in high school, and no matter where I went, no matter what friend's car I was in, I had my copy of the Jester Race and Horacle and Colony in my hands. I literally just carried them everywhere like a purse. And so that way, no matter what situation I was in, I could be listening to it.
It was like your emergency kit.
Yeah. I clutched them, to my chest.
Oh, Jonah, you're my man, dude. This is
perfect. It was a treasure, truly.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely that's what it is for me as well. That was absolutely my stuff. So like bands like the Duskfall, if you've heard of them. You talk about they're awesome and no one knows who they are. The
Duskfall are great. I just got their most recent CD.
Yeah. They just make great stuff, and everyone's like, "Oh, I've never heard of those guys." It's like, dude, are you kidding me? But yeah, I will absolutely check those guys out, Jonah. We always recommend that people do. Especially check out what our guests are saying. But gotta ask you, Jonah, are we looking at 2017 for Sentinels, or realistically, is there a release date or a time you were thinking of that realistically we can expect this to be out, or is it going to still be a bit?
Hopefully summer or late summer or something like that. We want to get something for people to listen to sooner than that. ideally.
Well, I'll tell you what, when you do that, or when you are, a couple of weeks or month or whatever prior to the release of the album, we'd love to have you, Matt, whoever you want to have back on the show to discuss it a little bit further. We'd love to kind of know more of the collaboration pieces of how certain tracks came to be. I think that'd be really, really cool to kind of get some behind the scenes on that. So we'd love to have you back to discuss that.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe in the springtime or something.
Cool. And then, so for those listening, obviously, you want to keep up with what Jonah's doing. You want to kind of plug some social media or ways that people can kind of contact you and kind of follow what's going on with Sentinels and Pyramaze's new album, et cetera, et cetera. What should they do?
Follow Pyramaze on Facebook. Follow Sentinels on Facebook. I have my own fan page. I have my own website, which is just JonahWeingarten.com. I have tons of highlights of my work that I do. Video game soundtracks I've done, trailer music, all kinds of stuff like that too.
Sweet.
There's so there's so much social media pages and things that I have to keep track of. Makes my head spin, but I read everyone's comments and I really appreciate it. And whether you like the page or like the status or whatever, or view the video, it's really appreciated and it goes noticed.
Awesome. Well, Jonah, thanks so much for being on the show, man. We really appreciate it, and we'd love to have you back soon. Thanks for being on.
Right. Yeah.
Thanks, Jonah.
Yes, it was an honor. Thanks, guys.
Hey, this is Matt Hoskins with Chaos Frame, and you're listening to According to Metal.
Whew! Well, folks, unfortunately, all good things come to an end, including this episode of the According to Metal podcast. But we covered a lot of stuff on this episode. We talked the latest metal news. We know that Biv has a little something down below when it comes to ballads, especially ballads that are written by ARP. Great news segment we talked about. 3 reviews. Your new favorite band, just admit it, they are. Space Unicorn on Fire's album we reviewed. Herman Frank's most recent album we reviewed. And, of course, Testament. Perfect album, at least according to me. 10 out of 10 material. Instant classic. Killer stuff. All 3 good albums, actually, on this episode, so check all of them out. They were definitely great to review. Speaking of other good bands and stuff you need to hear about, Biv, of course, mentioned that Messenger, capital R at the end, by the way, just so you know, was his Triple B, Biv's best band you never heard of. Make sure you check their stuff out as well. And speaking of checking out stuff that's coming out either now or in the very, very near future, Jonah Weingarten, of course, joined us from Pyramaze. You probably know him from that, but talked about Sentinels, talked about his new project. It's going to have no guitars. I cannot wait to hear the stuff that him and Matt Barlow, Matt freaking Barlow, are going to do later on this spring-summer time frame, which is even better news, that it's going to come out sooner than later. We will definitely review that. We'll review the new Pyramaze, which is coming out soon. We got all types of reviews, all types of things coming out on the next future episodes of the According to Metal podcast. Thank you so much for listening. And like I said, new year for us, stepping our game up a little bit. And not only are you going to get a new episode of the podcast every 2 weeks, but we are going to have some one-off topics or even some one-off reviews. So, for example, I'm a melodic death metal fan, and there are just certain genres of metal that I dig that Biv just doesn't really, and vice versa. So every once in a while, we may just have a quick one-off review that we do in between episodes. So we give you some new stuff consistently throughout. So not only will you be able to get that every episode that comes out, but even that stuff comes out. The only way you can make sure you don't miss anything is subscribing to the podcast. So make sure you do that. Subscribe to the According to Metal podcast on iTunes, on SoundCloud, on Stitcher, on Spreaker, on the podcatcher of your choice. We don't care. Just subscribe so you don't miss anything that we put out there. We would certainly appreciate that. Of course, like the Facebook page, tons of new likes, a lot of new people listening to the show for the first time. We really appreciate that. And a lot of great interaction on the Facebook page. We're posting stuff more consistently and want you to share your thoughts and opinions on the things we talk about there. Again, come on in. The water's fine. Join us on the According to Metal podcast Facebook page. And, of course, follow Biv's tweets, his amazing tweets that he puts out there as often as can on Twitter at ATMetalPod. That's on Twitter at ATMetalPod. Make sure you interact with us. Share the show with a friend. Subscribe. do all the fun things you can do, because as we have more and more guests and more listeners, we would have you to thank for it. And we really do appreciate your support, both last year and going into this year. It's going to be even better. On behalf of Biv, I'm Jay in the Kensington Place studio signing off.